715-842-8390. We're taking calls. Any questions that you have when it comes to your career or when it comes to being able to start moving your business in a way that seems meaningful to you. So having it obviously be more on the business segment. So just as a reminder, I want to thank Vanessa, who came in from V. Lee Beauty last week and just had a phenomenal, 2 weeks ago, just had a phenomenal conversation and sharing her story. And that's exactly what we want to be able to do here in our segments, is highlight those that are out there working, busting their hump, taking names, if you will, and making things happen. And so super excited to hear her story about how, as a child, she would sell lollipops. And I absolutely love that. So I will admit to you that I am a supporter of entrepreneurship. And so my wife and I, we had taken our sons to the local Sam's Club. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in the bulk candy and bulk snack section, you can actually buy things that are actually labeled for resale. And so we went there and pulled out the phones with the calculator and had the boys start calculating out what it was cost per item. And so that way they could understand entrepreneurship. They could understand if they were to make sales, and they can how that would go. And so it was very exciting for them. We ended up settling on Slim Jims, these little mini Slim Jims about maybe 3 inches long. And the next day, the youngest, the 7-year-old, sold 5 of them. So we were super proud of them. The oldest sold, I think, a couple, and then the middle child sold a couple as well. And so we were just tickled pink that they decided to do that and get outside their comfort zone. And it's just a fun thing for them to be able to do. And so if you're a parent, I think there's a huge opportunity for you to teach your kids about just business in general. And so it doesn't have to be. It could be taking them to to the local farm and showing them how they make milk and turn milk from from the cow all the way to what we drink there at the grocery store. And so I think a lot of times it's our responsibility as parents or as educators out there to show the breadth of opportunity that exists. In my community here in central Wisconsin, in our community, I'm amazed at how much industry does exist, whether you're on the engineering side, whether you're in the manufacturing side, whether you're agriculturally focused or you're in the service. There's a strong enough economy here that you can see a nice range of existence. You don't get in major cities, the farms, that just doesn't exist. And so it's really interesting to see. I can go not even probably about 3 miles away and run into a ginseng farm. And so one thing, I'll take a step back and tell you a little bit about ginseng for those of you that aren't from central Wisconsin. Ginseng is, when it's cultivated, is about a 4 to 5 year window before you actually harvest it. So you're putting in all this energy, all this time, all these resources into a root that grows down. Talk about faith. You're putting a lot of hopes and dreams on that soil. And you'll even put shades over the summertime to keep that soil cool. And so if you think about it, you're actually, and you'll see it, you're taking care of these plants that eventually die, and then, because all that you care about is the root. And then 5 years, or 4, I think is the earliest, but even I was talking to one of the local farmers here. They were harvesting recently in spring 6-year-old roots. So think about that. Where were you 6 years ago? And all of a sudden, that's what they're cultivating. It reminds me of people when they decide to go to college. They might take out student loan debt. They might, work and put themselves through school, and it might take them 5 or 6 years. And so what happens, though, is they're putting a lot of faith on themselves being able to benefit from their education, and then being able to then deploy that or, use that knowledge in work. And so that's super exciting as you think about what you can do after a certain number of years. And so we do. A lot of times, I think, in business, in our careers, we put a lot of faith on working hard, on creating relationships, doing different things. And guess what? Some of the things that we do don't translate to anything. You decide to join that networking group and you don't get any value out of it from the perspective of business. You might decide to take your business in a certain direction and all of a sudden it totally flops. The flop actually reminds me, I don't know if people remember this, but several years ago, Walmart wanted to get into the high-end clothing store. So they spent about $25 million to have this launch in downtown New York, Times Square, have a fashion show. The problem is, at the end of the day, for Walmart, people that go to Walmart aren't looking for Louis Vuitton, or they aren't looking for those name brands like Prada. And so for them to have, and again, I don't know if it was those specific names, but they're looking for high-end names, they immediately abandoned that idea because it wasn't translating to the results that they wanted. And that makes a lot of sense. I think we need to know who we are and understand that we're going to make mistakes along the way, and there's nothing that is problematic with that. However, I think the problem is that we're kind of inundated with this idea that we're only going to see people's successes, whether that's in the digital format or it's in a book, that we really need to start celebrating the failures that people go through in order to get to where they want to go. On Instagram Live, Sales with True says, that's right. Sometimes ROI, return on investment, isn't easy to spot, and sometimes there isn't any. I love that comment, because in business, we're going to do a lot of different things that aren't going to translate to anything of value. And so, and that's okay. It is like going out to the farm and planting a bunch of seeds, irrigating it, taking care of it, tending it, and then going to the harvest and just, harvesting all that corn or whatever that you decided to plant. And so we don't get emotional over the seeds that decided not to sprout, decided not to grow. Where I think the problem with some people is that they want every single seed. They get emotional about every single seed that exists out there because they want every single seed to grow. It's like a baseball player getting upset that they don't get a home run every single time that they're at bat. They know that the more that they're at bat, they know that there's chances are that they're going to have success. And that's where I think we change our mindset in understanding what failure truly is for ourselves, and that it's a learning tool. At the same time, it's a stepping tool. It's going to lead us to the next horizon. And so there's a great book out there, Failing Forward. And it's a great concept for people to understand that it's okay to make those mistakes. It's okay to make those blunders and to continue to move forward. Now, someone might ask, and they do ask me actually, I'll take that back, that people do ask, well, then when do I know, Sherm, when I should cut bait, right? When should I let things go? And I'd say for anybody out there, if it's something that you're passionate about, never let it go. I recently had read several months ago, University of South Carolina, the Gamecocks, had the oldest suited up NCAA football player. He was 52 years old, and he didn't let his dream go. He enrolled back into school, was in phenomenal shape, and made it onto the team. Now, he wasn't a starter. We won't see him in the NFL, but it was just the move that needed to happen. And I think it's extremely powerful when we can allow those aspirations that we have to continue to pursue them. At the same time, if let's say I'm really into volleyball, doesn't mean that I need to quit my full-time job and only do volleyball. I might decide to coach volleyball with my extra time. I might decide to join a volleyball league, especially here in the summertime, and enjoy that sand volleyball. And so we can have our passions, and we can have our career. I find there's extreme success when we can combine our passions and our career together. It almost makes an unstoppable force. We see some of those great athletes. If you ever have an opportunity to kind of read the day in the life of a professional athlete, you'll realize that those that are at the top of their game consume a ton of film on other teams. They consume a ton of film of what they're doing themselves personally. Then they physically put in all the hard work, and then they study more on the plays that they're going to be running. And so they're extremely intelligent when it comes to what others are going to do or have done in the past in order for them to know where they're going to stand. Another comment comes in from Sales with Truth that says on Instagram Live, change your position, but keep the vision. I really like that. That's a really well said. And at the one thing that I will say for people that decide to go down a certain path, it's okay to change what you're doing. Just because you decided to sell real estate doesn't mean that it's problematic if you decide to now start your own property management business. I think it's totally appropriate to take some different steps sideways or even backwards in your career path to get you to where you want to go. I think for a lot of us, saying no is the more difficult thing to do, especially if you're someone that has a lot of aspirations, a lot of motivation, big dreams. Saying no is one of the toughest things to learn what to do. Our buddy Brandon McCall says on Instagram Live, change the position, but keep the vision. He liked the same thing. He's echoing Sales with Truth. And it takes me back to this great book that's out there, guys. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read it. It's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. What the analogy is there's this American that wants to become a samurai bowsman, right? Shooting archer, a samurai archer. And so he reads all about it, ends up convincing his folks at the age of 18, saves up some money in order to fly one-way ticket to this basically monastery where he's going to learn in the hills how to become a samurai archer. And so to fast forward through the book, it comes down to that every day he's going to have to chop wood and carry water to be a part of the village there, and also be able to work on his archery skills. And so what he says is, man, we're spending hours chopping wood and carrying water. Sensei, I don't want to do this. I want to be able to just shoot, just keep, pulling back those arrows and shoot. And so he says, what if I get rid of chopping wood and carrying water for the day, and all I focus on is archery? How long will it take? And he said, it'll probably take you about 20 years to become a samurai archer. He's like, what? How long is it going to take for me to become a samurai archer in chopping wood, carrying water right now? And he said, 10 years. And the young man is totally devastated because he thought he could just come onto this hillside and pick it up and all of a sudden become a samurai archer. And I think a lot of times in the business world, in our careers, what we do to earn an income, we think just because we maybe gone to college, just because we graduated from high school, just because we decided to work at one company for 5 years, we feel that we should all of a sudden just be phenomenal. We should obviously have everything going for us. And it doesn't work that way. And so the chop wood, carry water is really the blocks, the stepping blocks, the key cornerstones, if you will, of being able to get things accomplished. And so I'll just use this as an example. So in this chop wood, carry water, the sensei was wanting the boy to get away from this idea that there's this end result and there was this timeline, that the timeline doesn't exist. Like, you're the one that's putting out this own expectation that you should be a samurai archer by a certain time period, and that's not necessary. It's what you want to focus in on is what are you doing on a daily basis to get you to where you want to go. And so in order to build up the stamina of muscle, in order to build up those that concentration, chopping wood and carrying water was a part of that. It's kind of that old Karate Kid movie, if you remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, with Daniel-san and the painting of the fence and the waxing off and waxing on of all those cars I think it's basically a scrap heap. But nonetheless, it was, waxing on and waxing off. And so how does that translate into the workplace? It's networking. It's going out and meeting people in your office. Don't eat lunch alone. Get to know people in your current company. If, let's say, you're an entrepreneur, then what are you doing to know other business owners? What are you doing to promote them? Have you ever just walked into other businesses and just said, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm new in business? I think for a lot of people that are technically smart, the thing that holds them back the most is their network. They don't know the right people. They don't know the right opportunities because those opportunities are communicated through another human being. Sales with True says here on Instagram Live, yes, I remember Karate Kid. All right, good. We're in the same demographic, hopefully then. And mastery doesn't happen in isolation. It's very true. It reminds me of those old school science experiments, right? When you read about physics, it was dropping things in a vacuum, right? So if I have a light bulb and I have a bowling ball and I drop them in a vacuum, they drop at the same rate per second. But in the real world, where there is gravity and there is air friction, they obviously don't. A light bulb will drop slower than a bowling ball. And success in business won't happen without failure. And sometimes it's epic failure. Sometimes it's burning up to the worst case scenario that you didn't, and you probably did envision and you were terrified of it, but then going through it, you found out that you're stronger through the other side. Brandon McCall says here on Instagram Live, build relationships. For those of you that are here locally on 93.3, if you have any questions or comments, feel free. 715-842-8390. We're going to be here talking about business and all its greatness. And I know for a lot of people, they'll say, well, I think you're a little bit obsessed over work. I'm not obsessed over work as much as I want to enjoy what I do 2,000 hours a year. And that's minimum, right? So if you do the math, let me just show you. If I work 40 hours a week, which a lot of people do, and I work 50 weeks in the year, that means I take 2 weeks off. That's 2,000 hours worked, 2,000, okay? And then if we multiply that though, if I'm 25 and I'm going to work till I'm 65, that's 40 years. That equates to 80,000 hours. That, my friends, is a lot of time. And so what I would like to do personally is find out how I can leverage my skill set of passion and delivery with whatever that I do. And so the same thing comes for you. What are the different skills that you possess that you want to be leveraging on a consistent basis? That every day you come in, if you're fully leveraging your strengths, you're going to find yourself in a better position because you're working on things that you enjoy, that give you energy. At the same time, remember, it's still work. You might really enjoy accounting, but that still means when you come in and there's accounting work to be done, you're still doing the accounting work. It doesn't take away from that process. Even though I enjoy meeting people, it's not a party. It's not just going to a networking event and having drinks. I'm there to work. I'm there to talk with people, learn their story, see if we can build a relationship, a business relationship, and it move forward. So I think sometimes people, they think that there's no work, that like there's not going to be any effort. There is effort. The difference is when you come home tired, you're not having to fake it. If you really enjoy working with your hands and you decided to start your own auto service business, you're going to enjoy it because you love working on cars. It will still be hard work. It's still going to use energy and effort and strength to be able to get you through the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up some questions that are coming from a business Ask Me Anything feed that I got going on right now on Business AMA. It's called Ask Me Anything. And so what we're going to be able to do there is answer questions that people have put out there when it comes to their thoughts on their their career, their life. And I find for a lot of people, it's trying to get another opinion on what they already might know what they're trying to do. So oftentimes we have questions and we really know the answer. We just want a confirmation that we're doing the right thing. You can obviously tell, guys, I am typing in the password. I cannot do two things at a time. I'm a unitasker. I want you to know that. Okay, so here we are. I'm going into the feed. And by the way, I'll be posting up this video Instagram Live. It'll be there, but I'll post it up on YouTube as well for those of you that gotta go about your business, go about your day. And so, also, I'll shift into that conversation in a little bit here. So Amy Hedges here from Instagram Live asks, how do you focus on one thing if you are multi-passionate? So Amy, to that question, that's a great one, is I would block my time. So I'll give you an example of someone that I was recently talking to that runs, maybe we'll get here on the radio station. Amy Garvey runs Essential Massage and Wellness Center here in Wausau. I'll also put it. Brandon McCall asked me to put the video also on Instagram TV, IGTV. Don't know if you guys saw that recent feature. And yes, Brandon, I will. So Amy Garvey has this Essential Massage and Wellness Center, but then she also is passionate about running her essential oils business. And so the way that she split it up is she was telling me that Wednesdays and Fridays she leaves for her essential oils business, and then her essential massage is Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. And so that's the way that she's able to balance her time between those two passions that she does have. Now, can some of that essential oil be utilized, or some of that skill set be utilized in a different fashion? Absolutely, it can. And so maybe it's a day, maybe it's a certain time of the evening. I'll give you an example of some of the things that I'll do as I block out my time, Amy. On Monday nights, typically I want to get home by at least 6 o'clock. Or latest 6 o'clock, because that's going to be family night. And then Tuesday night becomes date night. Now, I will say sometimes the date nights aren't as creative. Sometimes we're just hanging out there watching TV. Sometimes we might go catch a movie. Other times it might just be us hanging out. And so I think sometimes when people, they hear date night, they think there needs to be this money spent or this creativity. No, it could just be no TV, no cell phones, just talking. And that can be really, really powerful. Those are fun nights. And then on Wednesday night, I block that time out to do some service, work for the Boy Scouts of America and the youth group here locally at my church. And then on Thursdays, that's typically I'll go to a networking meeting. A lot of times our local chamber has a Thursday business PM at least once a month, and it's usually on a Thursday. And then on Fridays, typically that's home by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And so by being able to block out my evening hours, I'm able to then focus in on those things that I want to spend my time on. Sometimes I'll have to kind of question people when they say I have to do certain things. When it comes down to it, there's certain things that you have to do just really isn't true. There's certain things that we decide to do. And when we can change the way that we perceive our choices, we're able to then go about it much differently. So let's go to, again, if you have any questions, feel free to call me here at 715-842-8390, or of course, here on Instagram Live, you can just type in the question below. So what I'm going off of here is a business Ask Me Anything. First one comes from Fernell. He says, have you seen the new features on Instagram, and what do you think of them? And what I think he's referring to is the Instagram TV or IGTV, and I'll tell him I like it. From one thing is that I like the opportunity to put longer videos. So it's 16 seconds to 10-minute videos into Instagram TV. And so if you already have content, you can put it up. It is in vertical format, so that can be a good or bad thing depending on the way that you see it. That can be, for some people, a little bit distracting because it's such a narrow lens. And if you're trying to show a wider picture, you're just not going to get that in a vertical format. So that's one of the downsides of IGTV, is that it's in a vertical format. However, you can see why they're doing it is because so much of consumption is done on their cell phone. And I'm sure they have the metrics to back behind it that majority of people are consuming Instagram on their cell phone versus a laptop or a desktop format. Heck, even looking at Instagram through my iPad, it's just such a big, such a big picture. It's a little bit overwhelming. But maybe that's because I'm constantly on Instagram, only on my cell phone. The next question comes from C. Garnica, 1987, and she asks, when it comes to millennials, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about them? So let's talk about millennials. So those are people that are basically born after 1982, right? You have the Generation X, the Generation Y. And so one of the big things that they'll say is that they're not loyal. And my response back is, then show me a company that is loyal. Because I think their misconception, or I think their distrust of businesses is aligned with how reality is and what they've seen in their marketplace. So remember, a lot of these millennials they graduated college in 2009. It was a very poor time to be graduating. I was talking to a buddy who graduated from law school at that time, and the year prior, 95% of the students graduating from law school had a job. When he was graduating a year later, because of the downturn in the market, there was only 35% of people that had a job coming out of law school. And that was having about $150,000 of law school debt. So I think for a lot of millennials, the concern of loyalty doesn't exist because they haven't seen loyalty exist from the employer's perspective. Others say that they don't work well by themselves. What I would say is look at, especially here in the United States, if you look at where we've gone as we went to like this team atmosphere, we got rid of desks sitting in rows and in columns and went to these more open learning experience. We went to more team projects. And if you were in college like I was and you had team projects sucked. Because usually there was at least one person that was absolutely garbage on your team, and they're going to either bring your grade totally down or they're going to do nothing and benefit by just being a part of your team, which typically for most people that were go-getters, that person got a free A. They didn't do jack squat. They came to the first meeting, and then they always had excuses of why they couldn't come to anything else. And they never hit any deadlines, so you ended up doing their work anyway, and anything that they sent over was garbage. So team in college didn't necessarily lend itself to good learning, but it is the avenue. And if you look at the school systems today, they're actually going almost Google. Like my son in second grade, they actually combined the two second grade classes by actually removing the separating wall, and they have like bean bags and chairs and like just chairs on their own, and sitting spaces, and then some tables with chairs and but the desks are basically archaic. So you think about his mentality and going through these ideas that we have, these cube farms that exist out there, the cubicles will be something of the past, and we'll think, wow, what a weird setup. But it's only a matter of time, because like the world will still exist in 20 years and he'll be 28 and he'll have grown up in this idea of like learning on the fly and being free. So I think a lot of times, number one, they are independent. However, they work really well in a team. So they like to know that there's support. They like to know that there's an opportunity to bounce some different ideas off of individuals. Millennials are the ones, though, that grew up in the participation ribbon era. I didn't, and sometimes you can still run into the participation ribbon. I think my son got a 13th place in the track meet, which I thought to myself, it's just silly to give somebody a 13th place ribbon. Maybe top 10, maybe top 5, I don't know. And so the The problem with the participation ribbon is that then people feel like they need to get recognition for just showing up. That there should be some kind of applause that they came to work today. And that is the wrong message, because that's the expectation. We don't want to lower the bar. However, and a lot of millennials that I talk to, they understand that there's winners and losers when it comes to like sporting events, or they understand that it's okay not to get a participation ribbon. They do like validation. They do like being checked in on, not from an accountability perspective, from a how are you doing perspective, from an inquiry perspective. And so the leadership style of yesterday, which I'm going to call that those that basically rule with an iron fist, that say it's my way or the highway, it has to be done this way, that leadership style, thank goodness, is getting thrown out, because it doesn't work well. It's not getting results that you want. And so those that are stronger at helping people get out of their comfort zone and be able to help individuals grow will find greater success. Again, on Instagram Live, feel free to put your questions below. And then here locally, here on 93.3, anybody listening, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to call in 715-842-8390. Looking forward to chatting with y'all. The next question here on the Business Ask Anything is, what advice would you give a leader who is trying to develop his or her communication skills? The advice that I would give a leader is to have a look at what they're actually saying and how much are they actually listening. I find that for a lot of leaders, they feel like they need to lecture or talk instead of first asking questions. What is it that you are looking for? What is it that's holding you back? How can I help you? What are your roadblocks? How do you like to receive feedback? How do you feel this conversation is going? And so by being able to ask questions to others, you're able to find out what's really on people's minds. And then if you're actually able to listen, so sometimes people, their attitude of listening is to wait till they can talk. So they're just waiting for that other person to stop talking so they can just come in and again share all their wisdom. That's not the right way to go. By asking questions, you want to be able to have open ears to what that person is saying. And remember, when we speak, we typically talk about things that we already know. When we listen, we actually are in a learning posture. We have the opportunity to gain insight or other opinions from others individuals by what they're actually saying. And so if we're working on a project together with our team in a leader perspective, asking them their input is an extremely powerful way to do things. So for a lot of people, they aren't. Hold on one second. There was a question here on when I was going to post the Instagram Live. I'll post it up right after this, Janice, just so you know. All right. So when it comes to being able to develop those communication skills, that can happen everywhere. Because the best way to improve on your communication skills is to use them. So first thing that I would say when it comes to listening is, how well are you listening at home to your kids, to your significant other? If you don't have kids or a significant other, how are you listening to your friends or your other family members? When you talk on the phone, or if you're in front of them face to face, how often are you actually listening? And then when it comes to communicating, I find for a lot of people, it's asking good questions. Now, there's a difference between a closed-ended question and an open-ended question. A closed-ended is a one-word response, or typically a yes or a no. Did you like the food? Yes or no. What were your thoughts on that food? There's a difference. The open-ended allows them to then communicate. The other one that I would say, Louis ABO, is allow silence to be a part of your communication style. Sometimes people feel the need to input in every single void of space in a conversation. If I'm talking to my team, or if I'm talking to employees, and I ask them what their thoughts are on the project, or if they can give me some feedback on how they think things are going well at the organization, and they answer, I might still wait before I respond, to make sure that they're done communicating. So after they say something, I might wait 1, 2, 3 seconds of dead space. So let me show you what that sounds like here on the radio. So I might ask you, so tell me, how's your day going? And they go on and they tell me, oh, it went well. What went well today is my question. And they start telling me. And after they're done talking, I might wait 3 seconds. And that's what it sounds like. It's still. There's a calmness that enters into that conversation. And it allows that person, again, if I'm in a leadership role, allows them to continue to communicate. Allows them the freedom to think beyond just the superficial. At the same time, if they don't feel like they have anything else to say, then it's given you the opportunity to make sure that it's okay for you to now continue to communicate. All right, Dr. Peter asks here on Business Ask Me Anything, how long should one stay in a job, and what are the deciding factors for you to stay in one place? So the factors for you to decide to stay in one place, Dr. Peter, is totally personal. It might be the people you're working with. It might be the work that you're doing, the project that you're on, the impact of what you're doing. It might be that, the commute's phenomenal. You're not dealing with traffic. There's good mobility. The company's doing very well. You have some different benefits that hit your fancy, from health insurance or extra benefits. Your income could be phenomenal. Those are all different things of why you might stay. Those are personal. How long you should stay at a job is completely arbitrary. There's old school people would say you want to stay there a year, you want to stay there 5 years. I don't believe in that rule at all. And I know that sounds, if an employer hears that, they're like, wow, that's you're not very loyal. No, loyalty comes, it's a two-way road. Don't think of loyalty as only from me being the employee. You, as an employer, should be giving me a reason to stay. There's a lot of people that have moved places because of a job. And they stayed in that community not because of what was there, but because of that job. And it was because of that company, it was because of that management style, it was because of the opportunity. They decided to stay. And so for a lot of employers, they need to get their mind around the idea that loyalty is something that they cannot demand or expect. It's something that they need to provide. By being a strong employer, by having the right culture, you're going to attract talent and you're going to be able to retain the talent. So if you have a retention problem, that is the employer's fault. That is the company culture issue. That is your manager's probably biggest problem. if you look at your overall, now you might need to maybe do an analysis and find out, hey, are you paying the right amount? Are your benefits, are they up to par with your competitors? And if they aren't, then make those changes if you can financially. If you can't do it, then just know that that's a problem that you're going to have, that you're not paying a good wage. You don't have robust benefits. And so those employers that are building up their people will find that they're going to have greater retention now and even more so in the future. In a world of automation and AI and voice activation and technological advances at this kind of pace, your biggest separator will be how you treat, develop, and train your talent. Now, someone might say, well, what if they get all talented up, all trained up, and leave? What if you don't train them and they stay? That, my friends, is the worst problem. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I'm just running a restaurant. What do they need? Are you kidding me? You're in the people business. The moment that you started out as your own business, you became in the people business for yourself, number one, and number two, for other people. And that, to me, is extremely significant to understand. When you can focus in on developing people, you'll find true success because you'll be able to pull out the strengths of those individuals. Amy Hedges says, if you are wondering about leaving your job, then you should consider other opportunities because something is missing for you where you are. Absolutely, Amy. When you start even thinking that, hey, you know what, I'm not necessarily happy here, boom, the writing's on the wall. It's time to make a move. So to answer your, to summarize your answer, Dr. Peter, how long should you stay at one job? Completely arbitrary, as long as you want to, right? If you're finding value in what you're doing, you feel that they value you in return. If you feel that there's opportunity, so then that goes to what are the deciding reasons why you would stay? You'd stay for opportunity, like promotion, right, up the ladder. You'd stay for building a network, right? Maybe it's a big company, maybe it's a good network of individuals. You're meeting with people over lunch hours. You're meeting them for coffee. You're getting to know all the people in your organization. Next is you might like your manager. So by engaging with them, you're going to find out that she has a lot of great qualities that are rubbing off on you, and you can learn from her in order for you, when you decide to, or you get promoted to become a manager, you can then deploy a lot of the great skill set that you're learning from your current manager. Next is you look at income. Is it great? Impact? Are you having a fun time being able to do what you want to be doing? And that to me is extremely powerful. Maram asks, here on Business Ask Me Anything, do you have any tips for freelance digital marketers on how to develop and or expand their business? So first, freelance digital marketers, I would say this is going to become an even bigger business. That is a wide open space right now, mainly because they're kind of doing it hodgepodge by themselves. If I'm a freelance digital marketer right now, and I don't care what community that you're in, I would be meeting with all the other, if I can find them, digital marketers that also run their own specific area. I was in Houston a few years ago, and they have a phenomenal gathering of social media experts. And there were people that were on the tech side. There was people that were on, real experts on Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like these people, one was focused more on nonprofits. So they hit the entire scope, and they got together to be able to share. So where I think the open spaces, the blue ocean space, is to be able to leverage each other's skill set. So if you go and you talk to a business and they're not interested in Snapchat, then I would then reach out to my buddy that works over at Facebook or, is a freelance digital marketer on Facebook, and I would connect with them in order to deliver some great value. So I think there's a huge opportunity to get a salesperson, a sales-minded individual, a business development person to pull in the reins of all these freelance digital marketers and leverage their skill sets. Does that mean that you make your own organization? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe everyone's still 1099, but I like the idea that it's better to be big and still be a freelance digital marketer and be autonomous. I think there's a huge opportunity for a lot of these freelancers to combine their networks, combine together. So, could it be a graphic designer, a freelance digital marketer, someone that does, the written word, like a blogger, and somebody that's into audio, like a podcast? Absolutely. I would make that business together, and I would say, what can we do? Where's the synergy? Where can we complement each other to get more business? Because that's really what it comes down to. For digital marketers right now, the wide open space is that you can go after all these small and medium-sized businesses in your community. The thing that you have to be aware of is that there's big businesses, big marketing companies that are starting to make the shift. Even here locally, the radio station I saw, they run a few radio stations, is actually looking for a director of digital marketing. So they're looking at getting into that space because they're losing money, or not. Yeah, you're losing money on radio. Let's be honest. It's just not where it once was. And so back to the network. If you're a freelance digital marketer, network with all the other freelance digital marketers, see how you can grow, how you can be there for each other and get more business together. Next is, I would have a look at what platform is my best avenue. Next is, what's the content I'm putting out? Am I creating the content myself because I'm creative? Am I DJing the content? Because your personal brand has to speak volumes if you're going to want to deliver on someone else. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes these Instagram accounts will come onto my page and say, "Hey, I can help you grow your account. I can help you get more followers. 1,000 or 10,000 followers a day or something crazy. Just pay us money." And then I'll look at their page, and they have like 6 posts, and they have like 12,000 followers. To me, there's no value in that. Or they have less followers than I do. Again, there's the proof is in the pudding. If you can grow it, then show me, right? It's a show me world. No longer do we have to trust just your word. We can verify as well. And then, so also on the content creation, you can, by DJing the content, you're sharing what others might be putting out. And then finally, you can just be documenting or journaling your story, sharing that with folks. So platform, content, look at your posting strategy. Are you doing it frequently enough, right? The algorithms are changing. So if you're using it for business, you need to be posting more. Are you using certain hashtags? So if I'm a freelance digital marketer, what are the hashtags that I'm following in my business in order to get more business? And then finally it's engagement. So if I'm a freelance digital marketer, the only way to truly develop and expand is to be able to engage with as many human beings as possible, online and face-to-face, if I'm comfortable face-to-face. Not everybody is. Next question comes from Nick Torn 89. How do you motivate yourself on a bad day? Good question, Nick, because all of us are going to have good days and bad days. You can't have a good day without having a bad day. So I'll change the word day though, because I think we might have a bad moment. The question is how long do we let that moment fester? I want to think of a specific example. Nothing's coming to mind except, you might be driving to work and you're late and you decide to speed, you get pulled over for a ticket. So you end up getting to work later and you have now a ticket you have to pay for. So you can allow that experience of being pulled over and getting a ticket to be the conversation of the day of how you were a victim and how things are just not going your way. That can be what the story is. Or it could be just that moment. You got the ticket, that sucks, should have woke up earlier, shouldn't have snoozed the alarm, and it happened. Now you shift and you move on. You continue to move forward with your day. It's a bad moment, move on. I find for a lot of people, they don't allow that moment to just stay where it is. They want to rehash that story. When they meet somebody at coffee, "Oh, how's your day going?" "Oh, not well. I just got pulled over. I got a ticket. Now I got to go to court, or I got to pay $180 or whatever the cost of that ticket is." So they complain. And what they're looking for is they're looking for sympathy. The reality is that no one gives a crap about your day, right? It sucks. You sped. That's the consequence. That's the decision, right? We each have our own feet. We're the one that controls the accelerator and the brake. By the way, the brake is more powerful than the accelerator, so you should be able to slow down, no problem. And because of that, you're the blame. And that's the case for a lot of stuff in our life. And I know that's going to be hard for people to hear, right? When it comes to health things, it's another story. And I'm not. And yes, am I a little bit of a cockeyed optimist on this? Absolutely, folks. Decisions, though, are made individually. Now, you might say, I have to do certain things like, I have to go see my kids play. Do you really have to? You don't have to. But if you want to be an engaged parent, then you would. If you remember the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey talks about a story about a friend of his who used up all his vacation time and spent tens of thousands of dollars, maybe it was like 10 grand, to take his son to every baseball stadium in the United States to see each stadium because his son was really into baseball. And so his comment, Stephen Covey's comment to his friend was, man, you must really like baseball. And his friend's response was, no, I really love my son. So he didn't have to go do that. He didn't have to spend the money. He didn't have to use all his vacation time to do that. But he wanted to because he cared about the end result that he was going after. We are accountable. DE 19141 says, we are accountable for our own actions. And that is very true. So Nick Torn, how do I motivate myself in a bad moment? I keep that moment where it's at. And then I'm able to move on to the next thing. And I'm motivated by what I'm doing. Now, not everybody could say that, right? So if let's say one of my a job that I have is going and driving forklift, and that's just not very motivating to me. And I understand that might not be motivating. You're doing it just to be able to provide for your wants and needs. And so when you get home, though, I would have a look at what I'm doing. Is there an opportunity for me to do something that I'm really motivated about? Is it going to the gym? Is it talking to a friend? Is it crocheting? Is it playing volleyball? And that can be my motivator. And there might be an opportunity for that to become the thing. I'll give you an example of that. Just recently was sitting down here locally with Joe Ellis. He runs a company called Gem Productions. Joe is just a phenomenal human being. And he was a commercial pilot. Worked for, I think, Delta United, was in the union, helped run the union relationships for the airlines. Did that for about 14 or 15 years. And unfortunately, in the 14th year, developed vertigo. So don't know if you're familiar with that, but flying tens of thousands of miles in the air with hundreds of people and then not knowing your equilibrium, what's up and down, doesn't bode well for a pilot, just so you know. And so he eventually got grounded. And unfortunately, the vertigo was to a point that no doctor was going to sign off on allowing him to fly. And then that dropped that passion. No longer could do it. And nor would he want to. He wasn't going to put people at that kind of risk. Well, on the side, on the weekends, what Joe would do, ever since he can remember, at young teenage years, is that he dabbled in music. Made his own music, did some productions, and had some equipment that he had pieced together. And so what happened, though, over the years is it went from production of music to music assembly. So if people needed sound, they needed microphones, they needed setup, lighting, he would do it for them. And all of a sudden, it became a passion of his. So all of a sudden, when that door closed on the business because of his health of being a commercial pilot, all of a sudden he was able to then jump in on his second passion of production and making business and individuals relevant by looking at the ambiance and the presence of their production. So working with bands and motivational speakers and event planners to be able to just make a great event. Bring Snacks says something here on Instagram Live. He says, wishing you the best start of your week. Thanks, Dean. I appreciate you and wanted to thank you for consistently staying consistent. Thank you, brother. That's the word of the year, is consistent. Consistency. Want to be able to stay consistent. So my buddy Joe Ellis was able to then shift from one passion to the other. And so that's how you get motivated on those bad moments and in those bad days, is doing something that you enjoy. So if I'm having a bad day, Nick, or a bad moment, maybe over the lunch hour, instead of having lunch in my office at the Cube, I decide to go outside to a local park and eat lunch at the park, because that makes me feel good. It might be when I get home, I decide to go for a run, or I decide to go for a bike ride, or I decide to go walk my dog, or I decide to go walk with my wife up a hill. There's different things that you do in your life that can give you that positive energy to get you where you want to be. Next question comes from Paint Me Blue 86. Many people nowadays are using career coaches to find a pathway to develop their careers. Do you think this is a good idea? Why or why not? So, I think coaches are phenomenal. And I think that you want to look, Paint Me Blue 86, first at your network. Are there friends, are there family members that you're acquainted with that can already point you in the right direction? That they know you well enough that they can give you the advice that you need to hear, or can be a sounding board with where you want to go. So I think for a lot of people, if they were to remove their distractions, put their cell phone away, turn off the TV, turn off the music, and talk with their significant other, their best friend, their support group, the person that's been with them for years, the person whose opinion they care about the most. If they were to say, look, I am at a crossroads here with my career. I want you to help me get to where I want to go. This is what I'm thinking about me. This is who I am. These are the things that I enjoy doing. What do you think? Now, your significant other may or may not have the answer, right? They don't have to know the industry. They don't have to know the players out there, the business contacts. But they know your skills probably better than anybody else. And they know your weaknesses. So if you say, you know what, I really want to start my own business, then they might say, you're not very good at sales. That's very true. And that can be that you can't get defensive in this, right? You need to be able to almost, in a sense, take off the gloves, allow just a free flow of conversation. It's not emotional. It's just, let's have this conversation. Let's see where it goes. And let's figure out what I should be doing career-wise. And I find for a lot of people, if they're able to do that, remove the distractions, have a non-emotional conversation about career with their significant other, they'll get profound advice and insight into their strengths and their weaknesses. The next is to understand that your career evolves over time. You might have initially started off that you wanted to be an investment banker, and then you got into banking, you realized you want to be a financial advisor. Or you decided that you wanted to be a physician, and next thing that you know, you wanted to actually run the hospital. You wanted to be more an administrator because you liked being able to really call the shots. And so your career then shifts and changes. And that's okay to do those things. You might start with one business doing at-home care as a nurse, and decide that you want to run your own at-home care, and you decide to do that. Again, if you're here locally here on 93.3, feel free to call in with any comments or questions, 715-842-8390. And of course, here on Instagram Live, just put the comments below in the comment section. We're pulling from questions at Business Ask Me Anything. So I think where a career coach comes in very handy, especially if they've been in a specific industry, they can give you that insight. If they're local, especially if they're in your community as a career coach, they might have the contacts. They know the people. To be quite blunt, I think career coaches are worth more value if they actually have connections to people. If there's someone that wants to just help people on their way but don't have the connections, for me, that value is lost a little bit. Excuse me. Because if they can't connect with the right people, then all that they're doing is helping me talk through and give me feedback on what I think my strengths and weaknesses might be. I think they're great for some people. Thanks, Brandon McCall. Having a career coach can be vital because you might be so stuck in your career, you're too fearful to leave, or you might be so stuck in what you're doing task-wise, you don't truly see your strengths. So they can be very valuable in bouncing off those different ideas.